Our rhubarb is just starting to peek through with its asparagus-like head of pink. I moved our patio furniture from the garage back to its rightful spot. Crocuses have been blooming now for days. The robins have returned now, been here for weeks with their early morning chatter. Those daffodils planted so many years ago near the front of the door, near our mailbox, they're going to burst soon. The only snow left are those black piles in a few parking lots. You all know what special season this is now. Mud season. Mud season. Outside of the village, people have already moved their low-lying bird feeders. They know what is coming next. The return of the bears. I want another growl. Come on, another. Oh, yeah. Good. Following the bear with her dazzling darkness, coming down the mountain, out of the den, her cubs in tow, who were born in January. New life in the middle of darkness that hardly anyone ever notices. A perfect love. Despite war and chaos and selfish displays of power and retribution, Iranians still celebrate Nowruz, their ancient festival of spring. The earth and all her creatures continually cycle. The end is endless. The end never really is the end necessarily, is it? The end is always the beginning of new possibilities. Nothing stays the same for too long. The earth shows us that, how it's constantly turning and changing, and so are we. We might as well follow the lead of the earth. The story of our congregation and our faith doesn't end when one person leaves. Leaders in our congregation sometimes move away. I'm thinking of Judy Gibson, Dave Nelson, Carol and Tom Pitchon, Margaret and Bart Harlow, and more recently Valerie Ingram. Pat and Lewis will be moving soon. Their moving away has nothing to do with how much they love this congregation. Their moving away has nothing to do with how much they love this congregation. Amen. Amen. They've felt a nudge to go into a different life direction. I felt a nudge to go into a different life direction. And we have built into the structure of this congregation systems that will outlast any one person. That's the good part of being an organized religion. Sometimes people ask me, they say, I'm not really, when they find out I'm a minister and they say, you know, I'm not really into organized religion. And I say, well, that's fine. We're not that organized. Things change. Things change. This we know for sure. And we should grieve and celebrate those changes. Ponder and reflect how those things come to an end. Sometimes ministries end happily in retirement. You know, in our recent history of this congregation, Max Coots served for 34 years, from 1958 to 1992, and then retired. For 16 years, from 1993 to 2009, Ann and Wade served here. and then retired. I just want to remind you that 50 years of settled ministry that end gently in retirement is unusual. And I know that David Blanchard was here and had a short settled ministry from 2010 to 2013 that didn't end too well. But someone serving our congregation, leaving on good terms, and then moving on to more is actually quite the norm once you look at the history of this congregation. I want to just remind you of 3 ministers. Absalom Graves Gaines served here for 3 years, from 1870 to 1873, and then he became what? President of St. Lawrence University. Thank you, Roger. Hugh Hemerson Lalone served here 8 years, from 1929 to 1937, and then became editor of the Universalist Leader, the preeminent newspaper of our denomination then. Edna P. Bruner served this congregation from 1945 to 1950, and then worked for the Council of Liberal Churches and later the Unitarian Universalist Association, touring nationally, giving lectures and introducing local congregations to her curriculum materials for religious education. You all have a long history of raising good ministers that can then go out and serve our movement in many, many bold ways. And you've done this with me, for which I'm grateful. So let's recount Christianity's Holy Week just for a moment. So a week ago, Jesus rides into Jerusalem on a humble donkey to celebrate Passover. On Monday, in anger, he clears the temple. Thursday, he ate food and drank wine, was having a good time, except for maybe Judas. And it was him who betrayed him, and he got handed over to the Romans. The Romans sentenced him to death. On Friday, he's put up on a cross, a painful and slow, agonizing death. And then he's put into a tomb. Saturday is a day of darkness. But then on Sunday, according to John chapter 20, early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark. Those are some of the most poetic words, I think, in the New Testament. It's why people have Easter sunrise services. It's the reason we meet on Sunday mornings, really. The first day of every week was a mini Easter. New life celebrated each and every week. But here's the good news. Jesus' story didn't end in crucifixion. Loving your neighbor as yourself lived. The Roman Empire could not quite quash the Jesus movement and its turning of the other cheek. The brutality of state-sanctioned violence killed Jesus, but could not kill the spirit of his message. Loving outcasts and caring for those in need. This is the Easter miracle. There are now 2.3 billion followers of Jesus. This is also the Easter miracle. There is also beauty in the Passover. Pharaoh tried to keep the Israelites captive and force them to believe his lies, that they were not free, that he was all-powerful, that he and he alone could make big, beautiful buildings with their labor. Pharaoh thought he was the biggest and grandest, even more mighty than God. But Pharaoh could not hold the Israelites back from their freedom. Things change. They always do. And it's good to mark changes with remembrances. For the past 10 years, the North Country has become home. The only home my children have known. And it's a really unique place. Probably because the population's so small and we're so geographically remote. There is truly 1 degree of separation from everyone. I've had life-changing experiences here. I've tasted fresh maple syrup, which has downright been revelatory. I have grown to love cold, snowy winters. Long, cold, snowy winters. And just yesterday I realized how many different types of snow shovels I have. One for each kind of snow, really. A light plastic one for deep and heavy snow, a metal one for icy snow, a plastic plow one for light dustings. As I said, my children only know Canton as their home. They think Amish people on horse and buggies going by the house is a normal thing. They think seeing a dark starry night, clear, seeing stars from our backyard is a normal thing. And over the next 3 months, we will be able to remember and hold dear to our shared ministry together. That's about 350 sermons I've given. Wow. I never repeated one. There's the time traveling to Albany to lobby legislators with Paul and Sally, and the clutch goes out. Going to Baltimore for General Assembly with Mark. Traveling to Rochester with Stevie, Mark, and Eileen for the New York State Convention of Universalism. There's the hosting of the New York State Convention of Universalism, which we did last year. You remember the bicentennial concert? How special that was, the dinner we had, and the special worship service. Think about all the social justice initiatives we had. And I remember being there at Anita's bedside with family, blessing her, giving her our gratitude for her life, watching her fade away in peace. Sometimes it was just the simple things, like singing together, having meals together, and learning about the most famous people we've ever met, and realizing how we all think famous is different for different people, you know. I'll miss working with first-year students at St. Lawrence University, exploring the ancient wisdom while reading the Bhagavad Gita and the Tao Te Ching with our sacred text group, learning about each other's journeys in listening circles. I realized as much as I was leading, I was learning. Being human spiritually together takes many, many forms. And it was all shared ministry. like decorating eggs yesterday. One of the most influential theologians for me personally is Paul Tillich, and he put it this way: care, including pastoral care, is something universally human. It is going on always in every moment of human existence. Everyone is in some sense a social helper, a mental helper, a healer, a pastor. So yes, we are at an end and a beginning. An Easter mud season, dark and cold and cloudy, but with so many glimmers of new life poking through. Notice how the grass is getting greener between each gaze. Just as the Holy Week cycles, as the earth spins and turns, as the bears, thank you, as the bears and the snakes emerge, as the grass grows green, we are all, in a sense, going through cycles of rebirth, new life, and resurrection. So take the earth's lead into resurrection. Follow the earth into Easter. Learn how to love this world. And in doing so, may we have the faith and courage to know that in darkness there is light, in death there is life, and that endings are also profound beginnings. So may it be, and amen.